We submitted the building application in January 2023, and I'm a fairly optimistic person, so I calculated that if we were lucky, we could have a permit by June. Our geometra, being a more pragmatic person and a bit more experienced in Italian building bureaucracy, estimated that we shouldn't expect an answer at least before some time in autumn. So how did that work out? As we returned to the coast in May, 3 months later, by my optimistic calculations, our application would already have been evaluated by the town's planning office, forwarded to the local building committee for assessment, and have been passed on to the heritage authorities for the final approval. But as we so far hadn't heard a word from any of these levels, we suspected my optimism and my hopes for a streamlined authorization process had not been realized.
Lei ha visto la pratica. La pratica secondo me è un po' complicata perché si tratta di una ricostruzione. E quindi vediamo con lei come procedere e come andare avanti.
So we requested a meeting with the head architect of the town planning office, who had our application on her table. And it went a bit like this.
So, we just had a meeting with the building authorities, which was way overdue because they've been sitting on this application for a few months and nothing has happened so far. But we did come up with a solution that could save us some time. We removed the difficult parts from the application. The roofs of the rooms that have no roof today, we take that out and all the rest remains. And that will give us a permission in shorter time, which means we can start to build probably in autumn, and while building we can still apply for the other roofs, the complicated ones. Hopefully we'll get that permission by autumn. We'll see.
So, not exactly an ideal solution. We would have preferred to get an answer to the question of our missing roofs as soon as possible, and not starting building work while this was still uncertain. Plus, nobody could tell how long it might take to get a decision for these roofs. But speeding up the process for getting the main renovation permit certainly seemed like a good idea, as it seemed quite urgent to prevent the ruin from further decay. Most of our land was also still quite overgrown, but as you might remember from our last video, the terraces between the house and the sea had gotten a thorough clean-up. Now that we could actually see what was there, it was suddenly possible to start planning what to do with it all. So we went out and got a couple of chairs, so we could sit around in all the different places and contemplate how to best make use of the space.
Today we're doing a kind of registration of the property, where we walk around to the different spots, making notes of the view, whether it's secluded or there's windy there, or what we can see, how the sun is. And obviously this is to decide how we want to use the various parts of the site.
The next time we returned, it was summer. July is high season, so the calm atmosphere from outer season was definitely gone. But if you know where to go and where to avoid, the Amalfi Coast in summer can still be lovely. We do know where we prefer to stay, so, as usual, we spent the summer in Atrani, a small village right next to Amalfi. And this year we had a new activity planned, showing the girls around the ruin. So far, they had only seen it in pictures, but now the time had come for the full 4D experience.
Hva er det her?
Dette blir sannsynligvis en slags egen separat liten leilighet. Og så får man sin egen uteplass utenfor her. We know from earlier projects that they are a bit less enthusiastic about the process itself than Petra and I are. They kind of prefer the finished result.
Ja. Det er jo så godt som ferdig, vil jeg si. Hvor mange ganger skal vi ta den sjåken?
Being in the middle of an Italian heatwave didn't exactly help. So we were a bit anxious to see their reaction.
Kan jeg få en miks fra bæsj og snill?
Ja, jeg tror pappa har den i sekken.
Hvorfor er det så kjølig her inne?
For det at det er så tjukke vegger. Sånn tjukke steinvegger, så blir det liksom ikke så varmt. Det holder temperaturen nede.
Det er deilig.
Vi går opp på terrassen.
Ja.
Så her kommer vi til å ha, jeg tror kanskje vi skal mure sofa langs hele hjørnet der. Eller også ha det som sånn dels lounge, dels spiseplass.
Hvordan bygger man egentlig sånn?
Hvordan man bygger en rygg?
Jeg skjønner ikke, tar man vegger på?
Ja, man må tette alle hullene. Og så må man sikre, noen plasser så må man sikre ting for at ikke de skal bli ødelagt. Sånn taket i det som skal bli gjort rom, må vi sjekke at det ikke faller ned.
Det er skimmest i fallene ned til over.
Det er ditt og Marias rom forresten. Vinduet blir her, og her. Planen er jo at her også skal man få plass til sånn mikrobad borti hjørnet der. Ja, jeg er litt spent på om det er bra.
Men det er også litt sånn julestemning. Jeg vil ha litt skygge.
Ja.
Kjøpt! Jeg synes ikke det du kjøper med.
Du synes ikke du skal kjøpe den? I have a surprise for you.
Ja? Nei, jeg synes jo det finnes mye annet som er veldig mye finere. For det virker bare litt sånn
Uferdig?
Litt uferdig på en måte. Er det sånn at du kommer dit, og så går du inn, og så sier du, badet. Men så ser ikke jeg bor, jeg skal gå på do. Så sier du, soverom.
Tror du ikke det blir fint?
Please! Det var betyr det, ja.
Ja, ok. Maria Angela, hun er det best faktisk. Tror du det blir et fint kjøkken?
Ja, vil jeg få lov å tagge?
Ja.
Forferdelig lyd.
So it's safe to say that Anna and Maria were not totally blown away. Luckily, we have some interesting neighbors that did their best to improve the overall impression of the place. And the girls have watched us throw ourselves into various projects before, always landing more or less on our feet. So they luckily decided to trust the process, although they couldn't immediately visualize the promised final result.
Nå er vi på film.
Ok. Har jeg kommet? Welcome to our house.
1,
2, 3.
Jeg skal hoppe litt.
Ok, alle hopper.
1,
2, 3.
Jeg hopper høyt.
But the girls' house tour was not the only task on our schedule on this summer trip. We also had some more surveying to do on the now cleared and accessible land. In order to be able to plan how to use the various terraces, we needed a map. And as the terrain up until now had been completely overgrown, the official ones were not very informative. So we made the rather questionable decision to spend a heatwave day on measuring up our land. Helt utslitt. Sånn oppmåling av tomt er ikke noe spesielt lurt å gjøre i juli. It's the middle of July. There's a heat wave in Italy. It's 35 degrees and it's quite hot. And we found it's the perfect time to go and do some survey work. Not the best decision, but that's what we chose to do today.
we need to plan what to do with the site and the gardens. And that is something we can do while we're waiting for the other works to complete. So that's why I'm walking around measuring heights and finding out more or less what the space is that we have to play with, so we can decide where to put the different things. We are still waiting for the application to go through. They gave us temporary feedback that if we apply for the simple part first, we can get that sooner. So I've sent in some new drawings. That is, I've sent them to the person who is sending to the authorities. Hopefully he sent it to them. He's gone on holiday, so I really don't know. I hope he has, and I hope that we'll get our permit soon and that we can start building works this autumn as planned. But I don't know, and they're just telling me to take it easy and to trust the process, and I'm trying to. It's a bit hard.
So basically, we are where we were in January before the application was first submitted, only with a less extensive application in preparation, with no reconstruction of roofs yet, and a lot of time spent on waiting with essentially no outcome. But we're not losing faith. Not yet. And there are highlights. Remember our dead lemon trees? Well, some of them are not so dead anymore. So never lose hope, I guess.
And while we're all waiting patiently, or not so patiently, for the application to work its way through the system, we have some other news to bring on a completely different topic. Since so many of you have watched the videos and subscribed to our channel, we've actually been approached by a lot of brands that would like to sponsor our project. And this took us a bit by surprise, as this YouTube world and sponsorship world is quite new to us. So we had to reflect long and hard about whether this would be something we'd be comfortable with or not.
But we could clearly use the money. Neither our mortgage rates or the currency exchange have had a particularly friendly development since we started this journey. Plus, we need to buy another piece of land to get a more functional access. In order to make it all come together, we would have to come up with a few clever ideas anyway. So we've decided that as long as the sponsor is relevant for the channel's content, and therefore to our viewers, we will consider a short ad now and then.
That was some backstory. Now to the point. Saeli, our sponsor for this video, should be fairly relevant to anyone traveling outside of their own country. When you're traveling in a foreign country, either as a tourist or while navigating all the different tasks included in buying and renovating a property, your phone might be your most important tool. You'll be surfing the internet looking for anything from train tickets to the ideal solution for sewage. And depending on your country of origin, using your phone for this can be quite expensive. But these days, there is of course an easy solution for this. There is this thing called an eSIM that you can get through, for instance, our sponsor Saeli. Through Saeli, you can get affordable data solutions on your phone, super easy. You just download the app, register, choose your country, choose the plan that fits your travel plans and budget, and that's it. You can choose between more than 200 countries, or you could pick a whole region if that fits you better. You can surf ahead, not worrying about foreign roaming costs that will crush your budget. And as an extra treat, if you use the promotion code SOWEFOUND at checkout, you'll get a nice 15% discount. So find Saeli in your app store and stop worrying about expensive roaming costs on your travels.
Summer passed, autumn arrived, and in September, we were back on the coast again.
I dag skal vi fortsette der vi slapp i juli. Sist vi var her, det er 6 uker siden, så var det veldig, veldig varmt. Det var 38 grader. Så vi fikk bare gjort en del av det vi hadde tenkt. Så vi skal prøve å fortsette i dag og måle opp omrisset av hagen på sjøsiden. For det har vi ikke noe godt kart på. Jeg begynner å måle opp her nede. Jeg prøver med laser, men det er ikke sikkert den klarer det i sola. Nei, vet du, den her tror jeg vi tar på målebånd. 9,25. Nei, det finner ingenting. Jo, da blir det målbånd. Går du helt bak i koken der?
Ja.
Så kan vi ta nede ved bakken og stå der. Da skal vi måle ytterlengden her, og så inn til, og da skulle vi strengt tatt måle tilbake til den muren, men den er jo halvveis nedrast. Jeg vet ikke om vi får til det. Vi prøver. Og så, kryssmåling, sånn og sånn. Vi har målt opp etter beste evne hele den delen av tomten som ligger fra huset og mot sjøen. Det er ganske varmt fortsatt. Det er ikke så varmt som i sommer, men det er rundt 30, tenker jeg. Det er varmt nok. Så er det nå liksom et sånn metningspunkt på hvor lenge jeg klarer å følge med. Men jeg tror vi fikk det meste, så da har jeg litt å gjøre i ettermiddag, tenker jeg. Jeg hadde egentlig mest lyst til å gå og bade.
That would have been nice. But, as tempting as the September beach life on the Amalfi Coast may be, we still had a little work to do before packing up and returning home.
Vi har hatt møte med vår geometer, og litt nedtur, for den søknaden som vi lagde på nytt for at den skulle være enda enklere å behandle, har likevel gått til sånn vanlig lang saksbehandlingstid, så den får vi ikke svar på før rundt desember kanskje. Så vi får se.
We still had quite a bit of homework to complete to get ready for our next stages. So off we went to draw up the map. And we didn't return until 2.5 months later, in the middle of November. By the way, winter on the Amalfi Coast is seriously underrated. Okay, beach life is somewhat different, but there is something about the November pulse in the piazza, so different from the day tripper craze of July. You obviously can't expect t-shirt weather every day, but if you're looking for some normal everyday life on the Amalfi Coast, winter is your season. So life on the Amalfi Coast is slow, but how is the application process going? Also slow. And the initial energy and optimism is starting to wear off.
Ja, litt nedtur.
Ja, det hadde vært gøy om det kunne gått litt fortere.
Jeg er litt stresset.
Det er litt kjedelig at lånet tikker, går og renter stiger og sånn. Det er ikke så gøy å vente. Og så jeg får veldig lyst til å sette i gang. Og vi kan komme i gang med ting hvis vi vil. Vi kan komme i gang med de der enkle reparasjonene hvis vi har lyst. Men det betyr at vi må ut med masse penger i arbeid før vi vet hva vi får godkjent. Og det er litt risky, altså.
Jeg synes det er kjipt å bruke mange penger og ikke ha tak.
Ja. Men tak er liksom den siste søknaden. Spørs om vi må bare ta sjansen.
Ja, men bare det plager meg, at det skal være det siste. Jeg ville hatt et svar som sa tak, vegger, gulv, alt.
Ja, jeg vet det.
Mann,
Ja.
strøm.
Men sånn som jeg har forstått de, så er det lurt å søke om det taket etter at vi har begynt med det andre. For at det er litt sånn bordet
Det er
fanger.
den lurheten som ikke er med på.
Ja, jeg vet. Og så vet jeg ikke om det er bare sånn som de sier for å vinne litt tid. Men de er jo vant til å være taktiske her. De er vant til å liksom vite hvordan de skal gå fram for at det skal komme i mål.
Kanskje den taktikkgreiene ikke liker.
Ja. It's been over a year since we bought this place. Not much has happened. We sent the application 10 months ago, and it's been a lot of to and fro. The last we heard was that it's been approved by the architect of the Kommune, but not yet by the Commission. They should do it right after summer, which they haven't now. It's November, so it's taken a while. We're really hoping that they can conclude soon. So we're trying to push gently.
Mild pressure.
Yeah, so we have to find a balance there.
So, not much of a permit progress yet. And the building is still in urgent need of repair. But at least all the shrubbery that we had so thoroughly removed is starting to grow back. So that's some development, I guess, although not the one we were hoping for. As for the permit, we were told that it was due to be reviewed by the Building Commission any day now. There was a fair chance it would soon proceed to the Heritage Administration, where it shouldn't linger too long, given that it was now substantially simplified. And therefore, we could maybe expect an answer by Christmas. Well, Christmas came and went, and the permit was still nowhere to be seen. But in the end of January, we got the news that the Kommunes Commission, after sitting on our application for 6 months, had finally given us the stamp of approval and had passed the whole thing on to the Heritage Administration. And since the roofs have to wait for now, we considered this to be a simple application, so we expected an answer from the Superintendenza within the regular 30 days. So we jumped on the train and headed south, thinking that work would start any minute now. And we wanted to see the ruin one last time while it was still a ruin. And yes, the Costiera Amalfitana is still lovely in winter. And our ruin? Our dear ruin is lovely in winter too.
We're back.
We're back. It's January 2024.
It's hot.
It's really hot. It's like a Norwegian summer.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years since we were here the first time. It's been 1.5 years since we got the keys to the gate down there. And a year ago, we sent the building application to the Kommune, and that has taken its time. But this week, we found out that the Kommune has approved, and they've forwarded it to Superintendenza, that's Cultural Heritage Administration. This is a quite, it's a it's modest. It's quite conservative. So we're not doing anything wild. It shouldn't be so hard, but you never know. But yeah, in a month or so we'll know if they'll let us do this. It's a bit scary. Being this close to our anticipated permission, and therefore to a likely, or at least hopeful, start of the renovation works, we were quite enthusiastic. But also a bit sad that the ruin we had fallen in love with would soon change its appearance. Repairing it would inevitably bring it closer to the look it had from the beginning, hundreds of years ago, meaning it would lose the mystical, weathered presence that had fascinated us when we first found it. We would try our best to keep the air of ruin and history while restoring it into a livable house, but at this point we weren't quite sure how.
January in Italy is technically winter, but on the Amalfi Coast, although it can be harsh and cold when the storms are raging, when the sun is out and there's no wind, it feels more like spring. The brown and dry grass from last summer is now fresh and green, and flowers are beginning to bloom. Someone, I'm guessing our neighbour Carlo, has also planted vegetables on our cleared land, probably to keep the weeds and bushes at bay, and what looks like maybe tomato plants and beans are already popping up. But when evening comes, you can tell that spring is not here just yet. There's still life in the village though. The evening passeggiata along the seafront still takes place every afternoon, but the mood is definitely different from the summer vibe. And as a new dawn rises on the Amalfi Coast, we start on the journey home, hoping for an answer from the heritage authorities to arrive within the next month. Yes, ever the optimists. And then, all of a sudden, it's May again. 1 year and 3 months have passed since we submitted the application. Since then, it's first been simplified to save the missing roofs for later. It's been reviewed by the head architect of the town's planning office, who after 6 months gave her approval, and forwarded it to the local building commission. They had it in their hands for another 6 months before deciding they didn't have any notes either, and sent it along to the Soprintendenza, which is where the crucial decisions are taken. Did it take the anticipated 30 days, as we thought back in January? No, it didn't. The Soprintendenza decided that repairing the crumbling building was a complicated case, and she wanted more details, more explanations, more photos, and a detailed survey of the whole land around the building. Plus, she was curious as to why we didn't say anything about reconstructing the roofs. And that part I can totally understand. So we sent all the requested details and crossed our fingers firmly. If the Soprintendenza approved, we'd be all good. If she didn't, we'd actually be all the way back to the beginning again. So as the month of May passed home in Oslo, I was pacing floors and frantically checking my email. And finally, just before May turned into June, a letter arrived. Just a tiny little year longer than I'd expected. And we still knew nothing about the 2 roofs. But in any case, this was another major milestone surpassed. And we were now ready to get started. Was it smooth sailing from now on? That we'll tell you more about in our next video.